All right, let's do this. So I entitled this Unbreakable, Self-Mastery Through Effective Eating, Physical Training, and Mental Conditioning. Now, mastering yourself to the point where you choose what you eat, how you fuel your body, is one of the most challenging things you can do. And the results, when you start a program, it's not a straight line, so it can be really frustrating. But today I'm going to go through and teach you what works. A lot of people have done this before, but compared to the population, very few. And so if you can look at it as a way of mastering yourself, to work as your best self all the time, as daily training, as you do with your workouts, you'll have a better frame of mind to conquer this. So there are 8 forces of extraordinary health, fitness, energy, and vitality. And you see them all here. Of all of them, like your first step was to get the training regimented, to get the training a habit. So you're doing it each morning. Because as you'll find out a little later, if you do the nutrition without certain types of training, that you won't get the results you want. You'll lose muscle tissue. When you lose a lot of weight too, you lose any weight. If you lose 10 pounds or 100 pounds, you kind of lack muscle tone and you kind of look like a melted candle. And I know no one wants that. And when you lose muscle, you have less energy. So we'll talk about that more. So now we're at this step where it's time to focus on adequate quality and quantity of nutrition. And you don't have to be perfect with this, but you do need to be consistent. So, like I was saying, a lot of people have done this. And what did they all have in common? Well, they had a plan, they stuck to it. When results didn't happen, when they weren't trained, they hit a plateau, they made adjustments. They just didn't quit or go binge. Like Hiram here weighed over 300 pounds. He's down to 218 in the second picture at 9.9% body fat, which is an extraordinary achievement done in 6 months. Sharon, Joe, he lived out of a car basically. He was a medical supply salesman. And then, it goes on and on and on. And then there's someone like Dana, who is a world-renowned gastroenterology surgeon. She does really difficult surgery. She helped write the textbooks for medical school on the types of surgery that she does. And as you can see, she has 2 young kids here. And she's a really great mom. Like, she goes to everything, like you guys would, right? And to win it, she knows what's important. But she realized that there was a point where it was going to cause her children to suffer. They were going to do what they saw her doing when they were growing up eventually. And if you age and your body starts to break down, it's a terrible thing. I won't go into it, but that's how my mom passed away. And I don't want anyone to go through that part. I'm here to help you to live greatly and die well. And, my father passed away in a car accident when he was like 55. And I think it was better for him because he didn't suffer. He was strong. He always worked out. He was in great shape. So to his last moment, he didn't suffer. He had a great life. And he was a great father. And then my mom, she, over a period of 15, 20 years, gradually declined because she didn't take care of herself. She would think she needed to weigh a certain amount. So when she wouldn't weigh the number she thought she was supposed to weigh, she didn't feel like she was enough, she would starve herself and do a lot of exercise if she could. Eventually, she lost so much muscle, she couldn't exercise, she couldn't move, and it was a slow, terrible way to go, and to the point where she felt like a burden to everyone, and she wanted to go. And it was tough on everyone, and especially the people that were left behind. I handled it well, but my sister was really challenged with it, even to this day. And so I think it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves. These 2 great gifts that we have been given. We've been given a mind and a body. These are our vehicle, and the thing that allows us that we need to master. If we don't master our mind, we'll have no control over what we do and what we don't do. Life will just happen to us. We won't be a deliberate creator. So here is the warning. I am 100% results driven. I create the optimal blueprint off of science and decades of experience in doing this myself as well. And you are 100% responsible for your actions and inaction. This is about self-mastery. This is not about looking a certain way. That is the side effect. Your body is a reflection of your thoughts and your emotions and your actions and inactions. But the core of all that is your thought. And then we have a lot of repetitive thoughts. And those repetitive thoughts are what we call beliefs. And if you put all those beliefs together, that is how you view the world. That's how you view yourself. That's how you view others. That's how you view everything. And so it's absolutely critical. So during your workouts, there are certain things we're doing to help create a better belief system, to see the world more accurately and more powerfully. Now, I don't motivate anybody. If someone comes to me and they want to get motivated, I know that I can force them to do it, because that's what I used to do for a long time. I used to stand there in my training center and make people show up. And if they didn't show up, I would call them. And I would, be kind of mean to them a little bit, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And you guys are leaders. You're not regular people. You're super achievers. And so you'll have patterns that limit you, but a lot of patterns that propel you. Like overdoing things would probably be the most common pattern I see. You'll starve yourself and train really hard for a period of time, but your body won't allow you to sustain that. So today it's all about knowing that this is up to you. It's something that you don't have to do. This is something you're choosing to do. So I'm going to lay it out exactly how to calculate the numbers and so forth. Like if I was training someone that needed to look a certain way for a movie and where millions of dollars were on the line, or someone that was doing a competition where they're in little clothing and they're taking pictures and they're giving it their all. So I'm going to show you that is the model for success. A lot of people are modeling The Biggest Loser. The Biggest Loser is starve yourself and do a lot of exercise and lose weight on a scale, but they're not telling you the truth of what really happens. There's a study done on The Biggest Loser participants, and they showed that 6 years later, almost all of them gained their weight back, except one person actually, and I don't know if that's 4 years ago, so they may have gained it back now, but they actually lowered their metabolism. They burn less calories a day now than they did 6 years ago before they started this 30-week crazy program with all the leverage in the world. If you're going to get forced to lose weight, that's it. But that model doesn't work. So I'm going to share with you the model today that is proven to work thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So there are 3 prerequisites for victory, for achievement. And the first one is it's self-awareness. If you aren't aware of what you're putting into your body, then you have no clue what you're doing. A lot of people think they know. And that's in the literature, scientific literature, that's called self-reporting. And once you're aware, though, you also have to be honest. Our brains are designed to rationalize. There's a lot of science on this, but if you look at the work of Dan Ariely, he talks about this, how the brain rationalizes our behavior. So it basically lies to us. And it's also been estimated that half of our memories are inaccurate, because we told stories about them in maybe an exaggerated way, or a way with more emotion or less emotion, and we may have negative beliefs about it, and something that the other people involved don't even remember because it's not a big deal to them. And so our brains, you really can't trust unless you're connected to your high self. So you have that balance between the heart electrical activity and the brain electrical activity, where you feel centered, not when you're crazy angry or super sad. It's like when you're in a calm, joyful state. That's where we can get good answers. That's when our brain is more honest with us. But it really comes down to you questioning your own thoughts and your own beliefs and the information that's coming to you. And so self-awareness, self-honesty. And I'll give you a really great example where, I don't think anyone does this on purpose, but there's something called metabolic ward studies. Now, metabolic ward is a really cool study, because what they'll do is you'll go in and they'll say, hey, we're going to pay you to do this 2-month study. The first 30 days, just write down everything you eat and weigh in here. And then when you come back, we'll tell you what the next step is. And so they go about living their life, just writing down what they eat. Anytime they eat something, they write it down, say how much it is. Here's the calories, here's the protein, carbs and fats and all that good stuff. Then when they come in, they weigh them, and almost everyone weighs the same or a little bit more, which is funny. And because they're more aware of it than ever, because they're actually writing it down. But what's crazy is the metabolic ward is a place you stay. So for the next 30 days, they put them on lockdown. They pay them and stuff, and they're not there against their will, of course. But what happens is they all lose weight. They feed them exactly what they wrote down. And so they are eating way more than they really are aware of. And so that's where I'm saying self-awareness and self-honesty are so important. And then the final thing is 100% responsibility. Success is never a straight line. And your body, you should consider your business, because if your business doesn't do well, that affects every area of your life, really, right? It affects your family, your friends, your coworkers, your employees. Now, if your body isn't doing well, something goes on with your health, or you have pain of some sort, that affects every area of your life too. Like someone gets a cold, for instance, it's like, you're in bed, you can't do anything. You can't live life on your terms. And so what I'm saying is the only way someone can master this area of life is by taking 100% responsibility. So like, don't blame anyone. And just own things. Don't beat yourself up when things don't go well. I'm saying own it, take responsibility, and things that happen to you may not be your fault, but they are your responsibility because it's your life and you've been dealt certain situations and it's up to you to conquer it. And they were there, and I believe, as a gift, as an opportunity to change, to improve. They're there to serve you and learn to teach you. And so these are the 3 prerequisites, but there's one big question. And this will override everything. So momentarily, we're going to go through like some math. Like, we're going to calculate these things based off of science and decades of experience of doing this with humans and getting results. And okay, but you may say like, I don't want to do this. Well, what is your level of commitment then? If like 0 to 100%, what's your level of commitment? Because there are a lot of things that affect your program. Like, well, when we get your DNA results back, I will show you how to adjust this for that. But right now, we're basing just off all scientific literature and thousands of DNA tests. This is the most common things that occur. And there's a couple of things that are unaffected by genetics: your total calories you eat in a day and the total amount of protein. So those are going to be the same for everybody. Now, carbs and fats, there's different types of those things, and people do better and worse with different ones. So those are things that are genetic. So we're going to do what works for about 68% of the population that's been tested. And if you're outside of that, we'll make adjustments when your lab results come in. But there's no reason to wait. We want to put it one step at a time so it's not overwhelming trying to change everything at once. But this is the question that will determine if you're going to follow through. So life will throw some curves your way. There will be challenges. And some people around you that you care about may not be happy. Something could happen. They could get sick. There will be challenges. And if your level of commitment's 100%, like, this is a priority. I need to fill my cup so that it will overflow and I can serve the greater good, so that I can be my best for my family, my friends, everyone I lead, and just the community at large, and to be a force for good in the world. But what is your level of commitment? Just take a moment now and answer this in your own head. Run yourself through some scenarios where you weren't at 100%. But if you're going to do this at 50%, you don't have to do all this number stuff. So just focus on training then, but set your expectations of results in line with your level of commitment. Make sense? All right. So the way I do everything is through the scientific method. And what that means is you want to have a goal, and then you want to have a plan. I make the plan for you, right? So you have that now, but you really have a very clear goal, and that's an hypothesis. And then you have a plan, and then you need to stick to it. You need to control the variables through consistency. So, you have a goal, you have a plan, you've taken some measurements, so you know where you were when you started. And say you follow a plan and then your weight goes up. Now, at first, if you haven't been training, it's very likely that's lean body mass and water inside that lean body mass, which is a great benefit for your metabolism. You have a greater ability to burn fat, have more energy, produce more ATP in those situations. And so that's a good thing. But if you're just going by the scale and your goal is to get it go down and it goes up, you're going to say, oh man, this is frustrating. I don't know if it's worth it. Screw it. I'm going to eat a cupcake. We're all eat 10 cupcakes and a donut and have a beer, So it's like, but if you're 100% committed or even 90% committed, you won't do those things. You'll stay the course no matter what. So I'm saying, give me 6 months and let's do this scientifically. Let's go through the process of learning, of mastering yourself by following something like this, by having a plan and sticking to it. So if you aren't following the plan, you're randomly eating, randomly drinking, what's going to happen is you're like, hey, I don't know how to help you. I can't help you because there's so many things changing. I need to see what you've been doing for a period of time, ideally 2 weeks, and then see, okay, your weight went down 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Like, holy cow, I don't know if that's good. So take a couple measurements. Let's see where that's coming from. It's like, oh man, you're not eating nearly enough food, or you gained 2 pounds, or your weight didn't change at all. Like the first time I did this, I weighed exactly the same, did it for 12 weeks, didn't eat anything off my program, which is crazy. I wouldn't tell you to do that. But I gained 15 pounds of muscle and lost 15 pounds of fat. And I was like, my clothes were really loose because muscle is compact and fat is fluffy, as they say, right? So what we want to do is, it's so important for you, in order for me to help you and to teach you and for you to learn, is to be consistent. And that's what this is all about with nutrition. Deal? Now, the most important thing, according to the science, is the first law of thermodynamics, This basically says that calories cannot be created nor destroyed. They only change shape and form. So if you eat too many of them, those calories, whether they're protein, carbs, or fat, will be stored as fat. If you're doing resistance training, you can also build muscle at the same time. So if you do overeat, it's a good thing to do. So you can get away with a little splurging here and there. Now, what this is like if you eat too little calories, though, you will break down tissue for fuel. If you have a slight deficit, say like 500 calories as an estimate, you will go into fat stores. If you are in a massive deficit, like almost every diet ever, is that you will lose weight rapidly, but you will lose, for every 10 pounds you lose on a starvation type diet, you will lose, according to this research, 4 to 6 pounds of lean body mass. And then almost everyone gains the weight back, right? It's like a 98% failure rate with diets. And so what happens is you don't replace that muscle, especially if you're not doing resistance training. If you'll lose the muscle and then you'll gain the weight back, the 10 pounds back you lost, and it's now 10 pounds of fat and no pounds of muscle. So you lost maybe 6 pounds of muscle, and now you have a slower metabolism. That's what happened in the Biggest Loser study. So what we want to do is make sure, and this is why we did in this order. This is why we got the resistance training, the cardio in place. If you just do a calorie deficit and do cardio, which a lot of people do, they'll just start running or cycling, doing Peloton or whatever it is. They find something they like and they just go for it. A lot of times they get injured because they're doing the same movement so much, and they're in a calorie deficit, so their body can't rebuild and repair and recover. And so that leads to this muscle loss and a slower metabolism, and it's difficult to improve because there'll be a point where the body says, hey, we can't survive. We can't fight or flight. So we need to stop this. So we'll lower thyroid hormone levels so you can't lose any more muscle or fat. You're just going to get stuck here. And the only way through that is by increasing your food intake, actually, and then beginning again. So what I'm going to teach you is we're going to do this for a period of time, no more than 3 months, so 6 to 12 weeks. And what you'll do is there'll be a point where you get stuck. We'll make adjustments. And I'll teach you how to do this along the way, because you'll weigh in 1 time a week on the same scale, under the same circumstance, no food in your belly, first thing in the morning. And then we're going to get a more accurate, we're controlling the variables. So it's really important that we focus on maintaining and adding some lean body mass, because that's how you get continual results. Muscle is the physical location in the body where fat is burned and ATP is produced. So it is important for energy, and when you have it, life is easier. Like I was at a crosswalk the other day where there's a retirement home, and there's this woman walking from the grocery store, and she had like 2 bags and just had like apples in it that I could see. They weren't big bags, but she was struggling. It was like me lifting 300 pounds. You know what I mean? Like it's so like when throughout the day, if you have muscle and you're strong, you have more energy. Like everything isn't like a max repetition. Everything becomes a little easier. So that's, if you want to have energy and you want to lose fat and build muscle, you've got to focus on muscle. On being strong, right? So what is a calorie and where do calories come from? A calorie, for our terms, there's a crazy definition, the amount of heat required to raise 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. So it's a measurement of heat, but what we're really measuring is fuel intake. It's like liters of fuel or gallons of fuel, depending on what part of the world you're from. And so it's a way we measure total food intake. Now, where do calories come from? They come from something called macronutrients. The macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs. And so for every gram of protein, there are 4 calories. For every gram of carbs, there is 4 calories. And for every gram of fat, there are 9 calories. Make sense? So this is really important. Knowing this, because you're going to need this basic information. Also, alcohol, it's not a macronutrient, but it has 7 calories per gram. You don't really get energy from alcohol. Your body has to remove it and deal with it, so it requires some work to remove it. So, so you will get calories from alcohol, so realize that. So that's something you'll want to keep a note on. So like I have some clients that drink a bottle of wine a night. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what's your level of desire? You know, what's your level of commitment? And so like, if you want to keep doing that, that's fine, that's great. But it's up to you to set your expectation of the results you'll get in line with your level of commitment. Make sense? Okay, so when you break down macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat, they yield energy or calories. Keep that in mind. Now, how do you lose weight? We're also going to talk about building muscle in here too. So this is for everybody, but I'll tell you how to do this. But to lose body fat, not just weight, according to the research, there are really just two things. And this excludes exercise. This is just nutrition. And the first one is you need to be in a slight calorie deficit. You don't want to be extreme deficit because you'll start to lose muscle and you'll get stuck. You'll hit a plateau. And the only way out of that is to make the body feel safe again by offering it more fuel and continue and doing resistance training and move back down. Okay? And then high protein intake. Protein burns calories just in the act of digesting it. So there's something called the thermic effect of food. And so let me explain this. This is really, really important because there's some cool things you can do with this. But if you look at this chart at the bottom, it says RMR, that's resting metabolic rate. Now, in order for, and I'll simplify this, if you just laid in bed all day and did not move, but just stayed alive, just for everything to function, you burn a significant amount of calories. So say, so for like a regular sized person, like the lowest I've ever seen RMR on a person that hasn't dieted a lot is 1,200 calories, a little less than that. But that's like for most people, it's much higher. And if you eat less food than your RMR, the body will break down muscle and you will hit that starvation plateau where you get stuck. So that's really important to know. So you're going to need to be consistent, give the body fuel, don't restrict it. Restriction leads to loss of muscle and slower metabolism and more difficult to get where you want to be. Now, TEF, that's thermic effect of food. This is also called the specific dynamic action of food. And of these macronutrients, like fat, for every 100 calories, you burn 3 to 5 calories digesting it, so it's not a lot. It's very easy to break down in the body. Carbohydrates, there's different types of carbs, but most carbs that are processed, it's about 3 calories for every 100 calories you burn. It's not very many at all. Now, fibrous carbs, you can't absorb the calories from them, but they're more difficult to digest and break down. They stabilize our blood sugar levels. There's a lot of good benefit to these things. This is why vegetables are important. But what's important here is you have like a 12 to 15 calories for every 100 calories you ingest just by eating those things. So you're actually burning calories by eating those things, which is cool. And then protein is huge. It's like 20 to 30 calories for every 100 calories of protein you ingest. There's a huge metabolic boosting effect. And if you're eating, 3 or 4 times a day over a period of, 365 days, that's a lot of calories you can burn, And then the next thing here is NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I know that's a big long word, but you know what this means? This is the calories you burn when you're not exercising, like just moving around, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, standing instead of sitting. Like standing burns 3 times the amount of calories as sitting. So like standing desks are actually a great idea. Like I'm standing right now. I always stand. I just think better. I'll go crazy if I don't move around. I also fidget. And the research on fidgeting, the amount of calories people burn a day fidgeting, I mean, this is something that kind of naturally happens. I don't think everyone, you can make someone conscious of this, but just being more conscious in how much you work, how much you move throughout the day and stand throughout the day rather than sit. What that does, that burns in most people more calories than actually exercising. So, but again, that's not always, you don't want to over-exercise to burn more calories. It's not about how many calories you burn in exercise. It's about being consistent in the amount of exercise you do, and you'll see that in your programs. Now, the last one is exercise activity thermogenesis. That is how many calories you actually burn intentionally through exercise. So this is really important. This tells us all the things that matter, how we burn calories, all these different ways. So how many calories should you have? So there's a lot of complicated formulas to figure out your RMR, your resting metabolic rate, and they vary about 700 calories. So that's a big difference. So what I did for all my clients for the last 25 years, and the clients of other trainers that worked for me, we had a device that actually measured this. Then we saw where they actually lost weight. And then we had people that did fitness competitions that measured very regularly, so controlled their variables. And these formulas are basic. And these are what really will get you in the ballpark. No one can tell you the exact amount of calories you need per day because of the previous chart I showed you. There's all these variables. It will vary day to day. And that's why we're keeping our workouts very consistent. Got it? So we want to have consistent calorie intake so that we know how to make adjustments to get you either more muscle or less fat or whatever you want to do to increase your performance. So for fat loss, this is body weight in pounds times 10 to 12. If you want to maintain weight, for most people, it's your body weight in pounds times 13 to 14. A lot of people are in that range too. unintentionally. And for muscle gain, you want to have body weight in pounds times 15 to 17. Some people who have really fast metabolism have to go up to 20 to 25. Like, that is highly variable. There are people, people are skinny as a rail. Like, they have to eat a ton of calories and protein. And so here's a sample human. And, if you want to convert pounds to kilograms, it's 1 pound equals 2.2 pounds equal 1 kilogram. So a 200-pound person weighs 90.9 kilograms. Their goal was fat loss. So we're going to take 200 times 10 and 200 times 12, and that gives us a range of 2,000 to 2,400. So what I do is I just take that middle number, because if I go a little over, it's okay. If I go a little under, it's okay. So 2,200 would be what you could do. So 2,000 to 2,200, and then we usually get more than we realize. And then we want to know protein is so important. Like I told you, it boosts metabolism. But when you look in a mirror, you are looking at protein. Your skin, your hair, your nails, your eyeballs, all your organs, your muscles. And so as cells die, boom, you snap your fingers, billions die. Billions need to be reproduced. And if you don't have enough protein, it's more difficult to have protein synthesis, the act of building cells in the body. So if you're interested in the actual research, message me and I'll share it with you, because I'm a nerd. I want to make sure this doesn't go too long either, because I know everyone's busy. I want to give you the direct approach. But if you're overweight or obese, and that means 30 or more pounds overweight, you'll use this formula. You'll take 0.54, your body weight in pounds times 0.54, and your body weight in pounds times 0.82. I would stick with the higher number. That would be the target. And the other number would be your absolute minimum. That's what I recommend, because protein helps reduce cravings, and it makes it easier to stick to the program. It helps you build muscle, so it's very useful. And I would do that with all these goals. So healthy weight, someone's at a healthy weight, like you're less than around 20 pounds off your goal or whatever, then take your body weight in pounds times 0.64 to 1.0, and that is the amount of protein you have each day. And so that's your range, minimum and optimum. Got it? And then if you're healthy weight and your goal is muscle gain, so I know some of you want to add muscle, it's the same range, but you can actually eat more protein on this one. So it goes up to 1.18. So that's your range. So for our fat loss example, this 200-pound person of a healthy weight is 0.64 times 1.0. So that's 128 grams to 200 grams a day. And that, you're saying it's a big variation, yeah. But what we want to do is target the high number. And if we fall short for some reason, that's okay. We're still in range. Got it? All right. You can freeze it if you need to do it or whatever, but make sure you do the numbers here. Now, calculate daily fat intake. Now, some people are fat averse. If you were around in the 80s and 90s and trying to lose weight, fat makes you fat. This one lady on infomercials said all the time. She was very compelling, and so it stuck in my head too, which is funny. But fats are important for hormonal support. All hormones in your body are made from fat. And when we get your DNA results, I'll be able to tell you, okay, these are types of fats you want to stick to. These are ones you want to avoid. Or some people do great with both of them. So you have nothing to worry about there, which is nice. And so for our example, this is what we do. So the daily calorie intake is 2,200 calories. That's that middle number in the range, right? Now protein intake on the high end was 200 grams. And we know that there's 4 calories per gram of protein. So that means there's 800 calories per day coming from protein. So 800 of the 2,200 calories we're targeting, 800 are coming from protein. Got it? So what we're going to do is figure out how many is left over, which is 2,200 calories minus 800 calories equals 1,400 calories. Now, for most people in the DNA test, they do good on protein carbs or they do bad on protein carbs. Either way, it's the same protocol. You want to split it in half because you don't do good with either of them or you do great on both of them. If your fat gets too low, you burn up your food, you feel less satisfied. You tend to want to eat more. We'll tend to overeat. It's like if you ever had sushi, like how much freaking sushi can you eat? It's like there's very little fat in it. So that's what we want to do. We want to split it in half. So 50% of 1,400 of these extra calories, or of the remaining calories, 700 calories. Now, there are 9 calories per gram of fat, right? So 700 divided by 9 equals 77.7 grams of fat per day in our example human. So that's what we want. So next thing we're going to do is do the same thing but with carbs. And there are different types of carbs, and you'll learn this once we get your DNA, but ones that are unprocessed are good for most humans. Like if you're going to eat fruit, any type of berries, apples, pears are really good for almost everybody. You want to stay away from processed foods. So based off what we're talking about, like some people are afraid of fat, some people are afraid of carbs. They like, carbs make me fat. Like there are really different types of carbs. It's kind of like being carb racist or fat racist. It's like saying that they're all the same. It's like, no, that's crazy. Like there's different foods have different benefits. Like carbs have a lot of fiber and prebiotics, the things that make the beneficial bacteria in the GI tract. There's vitamins, minerals that are crucial for prevention of disease and health, fitness, and energy. Like this is really important stuff. Oh man, something just fell behind me. Sorry about that. It's actually a big vertebrae. I have a model of a vertebrae. So if you heard something, that's what it was. So back to this. So we have 700 calories unaccounted for. They're going to come from good carbs, right? Or if you're having a free meal, they can come from not so good carbs. You can still have ice cream and stuff on this. You just got to hit these numbers. That's what we want to do in this phase of the program. And so for our sample human here, we have 700 calories left, and there are 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. So we take 700 divided by 4, and that's 175 grams of carbs per day. And that may sound like a lot, may sound like a little, depending on what your experience and your beliefs are. But trust me, it will be effective. It's total calories and protein that really make a difference in body composition, adding lean muscle, burning fat. Trust me on this. I've been doing it for 26 years and longer, with clients 26 years. And so right now, this is what we got. So we got all our numbers. Target goals for our sample person, you should have these two now, right? 2,200 calories per day, protein 200 grams per day, fat 77.7, carbs 75 grams, 175 grams. So what's next? Structure and timing. This is important. You want to automate this. The research on self-discipline, willpower, and good decision-making, executive function of the brain, comes down to how many decisions you make in a day. The more you can automate things, the more you can make them habitual, the more likely you will stick to it, the greater your self-control and willpower, the greater your discipline. So this is why this is so important. And what is your level of commitment? You may be doing these numbers like, I'm not going to do this. Well, you don't have to do it. You either choose to do it or you don't do it. No one's making you do it. Do you want the result or do you want to continue on the path you're going? Totally up to you. So choose your daily meal frequency. Now the research on this, we have a lot of research on this. If your calories are the same, you will get the same results. So there's interesting studies on intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. And what that means is like you eat all your food within a certain time frame, like 8 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours. This research study was done on 8, another one done on 4. But everyone in the study either did intermittent fasting or continuous fasting, which means not continuous fasting, but continuous feeding. And so they ate the same amount of calories in both groups, but what they did was they ate the same amount of calories, but one group ate them any time of day. They just said, hey, there was a level of self-awareness because they said, okay, you're eating 2,200 calories a day. And the other group is like, you're eating 2,200 calories a day. Everyone's eating 2,200 calories a day. This group, you have to eat them all within this time frame. This group, anytime, as long as you're awake, and that's it. And what they found is they had almost identical results in muscle and fat. So total calories is what matters. Not a lot of people are going to tell you this because this is a hard sale. This is work. You actually got to think. You got to do some math here and there. You got to create level awareness. You got to pay attention to stuff. Like where intermittent fasting is like, I just don't eat from this time to this time. But some people gain weight on it because they eat too much food in that time frame. Some people have problems with food and it triggers something inside them where they have an eating disorder. So I would say what's great about intermittent fasting is that it adds structure. Like I do 12 hours fasting, 12 hours fueling, just so I have structure. And I eat basically the same time every day. If something goes off, the next meal I get right back on it. I don't even make up the other meal. I don't shove it all in. I just make up for it by eating the next meal and getting right back on track. So for most, the ranges that we've had clients that got results are between 3 and 6. Some people were doing competitions, they ate really small meals, they didn't have great digestion, so it was easier for them to eat small meals throughout the day. Some people could eat bigger meals. Like we had one guy who was in the military, he just ate 2 giant meals because he was out all day working. And so he had a giant breakfast and a giant meal at night. We had one guy in the military who said 1 giant meal a day, but he was like, he's not like any of us. He's a special human. He's not right. I love the guy, but he wouldn't be a person you model because he does a lot of crazy stuff. And he can eat a lot of food at one time. He's pounding like 3,000, 4,000 calories at once. And he's big. He's a big, strong guy. And so choose your number. For most people, it's 3 or 4. So, and you can change this later, but choose one. For me, I do 4. So 4 meals a day for a 200-pound sample human. We just took all those numbers and divided by 4. Because every time you fuel, you want to fill the tank. You don't want to have little meals and big meals because that will throw off your blood sugar levels. And the research from Roy Baumeister, 43 years of research at Florida State University on self-control, willpower, discipline, and decision-making comes down to balancing blood sugar levels. It's also important for fat loss and to avoid diseases like diabetes or heart disease, which are related. And so it's really important that you fill the tank each time you eat and make it consistent. And at first, it's a little bit work, but I gotta tell you, after you get the hang of it, it's like anything new. It's great because you don't have to think very much. It's just automated, and you feel good all the time. You have even energy throughout the day. You don't have these ups and downs. It's easier to live in a beautiful state of being as your high self. So if you took all these proteins, carbs, and fats, and you calculated the calories, it would equal 550 calories. And if you multiply that times 4, that's 2,200 calories. Make sense? You can go back and watch this a million times if you want. This is just the simple math. So how do you create your plate? This is the simplest way. I learned this from Dr. John Berardi, actually. He's there. His company's worked with a lot of people, and so this is the way they break it down. So, like based off what we just talked about, is you want to measure and weigh these things as an education at first. On here it's saying use 1 to 2 palms. This is give you some. You want to get a scale and weigh your foods. That's really important. For at least a month. That's all I can say. If your goal is fat loss, you got to measure things. If your goal is muscle gain, you got to measure things too, just for a period of time so you get the education. The best education I ever got was from competing and having to weigh a certain amount at a certain time, and it was for fighting, and so I didn't have to fight someone 400 pounds. It was pretty important to me because I couldn't afford getting any uglier. And so measuring it, though, was the greatest education. I've gone to school for all these things. I give seminars all over the world, and what is it? Like, I didn't know, I wasn't aware of what was in certain foods. So your goal, your homework to master this area of your life is to get your hands dirty, to learn this stuff. Treat it like university. Like I'm taking this course in self-mastery, and this module is nutrition. Got it? Fueling the human body. And so the categories, though, are real easy. Lean proteins, carbs, right? High octane carbs, unprocessed carbs, fats, mostly plant-based fats, and vegetables. And so I made something for you. This is the ultimate food list. I sent it to you before. I'll actually send it to you again. But if you just choose one from each category, that will build your meals. And then you just got to look these things up. You can ask Siri. That's what I do. She's probably going to pop on any second because I said her name. And then ask like, hey, how many grams of protein are in this much chicken? She just turned on. Sorry, Siri. Okay. And then you just choose one from each. And as for vegetables, I would have 2 cups of vegetables each time you eat, ideally, but a minimum of 1 cup. And if you're not eating any vegetables, start with 1 cup and gradually build your up because that can create some digestive not fun. Make sense? So you're just going to grab one from each of these, and at first it's a little bit of work. You got to think, but mastery is about thinking. Mastery is about doing what's necessary to develop the skills and doing it with the repetition to where it becomes automatic. Like I never think about these things. I can eat anywhere and I know what to do. And that's my goal for you. I want you to have that ease and that lifestyle where you have energy, you have muscle, you have strength, you're lean, you're proud of your body, and it never lets you down. Make sense? Okay. So consistency is the key. Self-monitoring. This is essential for learning. This is the university. If you want to use an app, you can use MyFitnessPal app. And just each week weigh in at the same day, each week at the same time under the same circumstances. So don't change scales. Use the same scale because even if it's off, at least it can be consistently off, right? That's the cool thing. And so this is a scientific method again. Control the variables. But if you have days where you go way off and the first 7 days will be a wash. No matter what you do when you change your eating, your water levels in the body will go all over the place. You may gain weight, you may lose a ton of weight. Like if you cut out carbs, like why keto's like a easy sell is when you cut out carbs, after 3 days, you deplete your carbohydrate stores in your muscle. It's called glycogen. And then what happens is if you were eating a lot before, if you were eating very little before, they're probably already gone. But what happens is for every part of glycogen you store 2.4 parts of water. So think of like a bottle of water. And then think of that's full of glycogen, then another 2.4 bottles of water that goes with it. So as you deplete glycogen, you let go of water. Now, is that good? Not really. When you have glycogen, you have more energy. You can have more endurance. You have more strength. It's actually pretty important. But so what I'm saying is you want consistency. This first 7 days, I would weigh yourself once and don't weigh for 2 weeks. It's really important. Then tell me what it is, and I'll show you how to adjust. If you lost weight, that's great. If you lost 20 pounds, I'm be like, oh my God, this might not be okay. But some people would be happy with that, but I know what the long term is. So just shoot me a message each week when you weigh in. You can put it and track your progress, and it will in the app, and it will actually make a cool graph over time, which is always fun. And then we can see how to adjust it. But this is what you got to do. You got to have a plan. You got to be consistent with it. You got to measure and modify and repeat that process again and again. So a lot of people have done this, not just with me, but just in the world. So you're not alone. But the thing is marketers are full of shit. This industry is full of lies and exaggeration, misinformation. And, there's no way a regular person that doesn't do this for a living can figure this out on their own. Like, most trainers haven't figured it out. Like, I teach trainers, and they have no clue. They get sucked into marketing like everyone else. And then they're trying to make money, so they get biased on certain things because they get a few bucks if they recommend things. So what I want you to know is just the truth and understand how your body works, have a process for building muscle, losing fat, having more energy, and mastering this. Then later on, once we get this in place, we'll add the DNA part in. And that's how you eat the rest of your life. Then I can teach you really cool shit, like experiments of how to amplify results in a few weeks, how to remove toxins from the body. That's actually something I'm gonna do another video on because that's really important for those losing weight, to make sure you live longer and better. So I know this is tough psychologically. I know it's not easy. But what I want to assure you that you can absolutely do this, and I'm here for you, but I can't do it for you. So take this time to give it everything you got. Give it 6 months and master this stuff. Look at it like you're taking a Tony Robbins seminar for 6 months, but you can still sleep. That's the good thing. And you can eat and you can go to the bathroom. It's awesome. But you can do this, and I love results. So, if it's something you want to share with other people to inspire them, I would love to have your story available so that we can inspire more and more people, and we'll do something great for you too, just for doing that. But I'm here to serve, whatever you need, but I can promise you, you are greater than anything that stands before you. And you were not born a lamb, not of fear, something we learn. You were born a lion. Thank you.